Et maintenant, on va passer à un panel d'une quarantaine de minutes. Je vais vous demander d'accueillir notre ami Alain Debar de HVS qui va... on va répondre à la question que j'ai posée ce matin. Where, why, when? And the question is not where, when, why, and when. Is why Morocco and why now Morocco? Alain Debar, je te laisse la main. Tu as 40 minutes.
Bonjour. Je vais appeler mes panélistes, mais surtout aujourd'hui, on va parler de pourquoi le Maroc. Et puis justement, pourquoi maintenant. Donc, on a un super panel. On a Hamza, Iwan, Mehdi, Youssef et Ken. Donc, if you'd like to join me on the... And I think I'll switch to English because better than in French, right, Iwan? How's your French, Iwan? How are you? How are you?
I'm very good.
So instead of me introducing all of you, I thought, the best thing, you maybe just best to introduce yourself. So maybe Hamza, you'd like to go ahead.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. From South Africa, family office, large investor in the travel, leisure, hospitality space, have a large network of Hyatt hotels, and specifically on the cusp of opening Africa's and one of the world's smallest ultra-luxury hotel, the Park Hyatt in Johannesburg, in the coming month.
Good morning, Ewan Cameron, West One Hospitality. Welcome to Marriott Casablanca. We're a family office too. We have, for over 50 years, the Magauji family have invested in hotel real estate. We work with all the big international brands, as well as have standalone independent signed assets. And we've been investing in Morocco since 2007.
Good morning, everyone. Mehdi Xikes from Funduqia. We are also a family office. Much smaller than my esteemed colleagues here, but we have a history in Morocco in hospitality. The adventure started 38 years ago with an investment in a hotel that's today managed by Melia. So it's called the Sol Oasis by Melia, Sol Oasis Marrakech by Melia. It's in the all-inclusive premium segment. And we are also owners of the hotel that's managed by Iberostar, also in the premium all-inclusive in Marrakech. Very pleased with the performance of these hotels, and with all the dynamic that we're seeing, that we've been discussing for the last 2 days. We are on the verge of growing and investing and taking part in this growth story that we're hearing about. So we have a lot of pipeline, a lot of projects that we're launching and analyzing carefully, and hopefully with some of the partners that are interested in Morocco here. So that's us.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ken Ogwang from the Industrial Development Corporation. It's a development finance institution that's owned by the South African government. So in terms of, I think the institution has a big history in resources and mining, and I think we now have also a very big presence within the tourism and hospitality space, with a lot of hotel investments in South Africa. And I think increasingly we've done a few projects across the continent. I think a lot of projects within sub-Saharan Africa, and then going further up north, we've got some projects in Ghana and in Uganda as well. We've done some work there. So I think very excited to be here, and I think keen to be part of the conversation in Morocco. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. We are not a family office, but happy to share the session with you. Magespro Africa is an engineering consulting firm. We've established ourselves in the market in 2012. We offer a comprehensive range of project management and construction management services. Actually, we like to define ourselves as a hotel investment platform, up from programming a new project up until FF&E management, cost control, value engineering. Our mission is simple: bring life to your project in timely manner, on budget, and will build quality. Today, we have already contributed to a significant part of the hospitality landscape over the past 10 years. We're very proud of this. In the next 3 years, we will be delivering 1,500 new keys in Casablanca, Rabat, and Marrakesh, mainly in the 4- and 5-star segments. So very happy to be here again.
Okay, great. Maybe just starting with, why investing in Morocco? Obviously, we've got, a great panel here of investors. And starting with you, Ewan, obviously, Westmont's got one of the largest portfolios across Europe. Why Morocco? And, what have you found to be particularly appealing in the market?
Thanks, Elaine, and good morning again. Today we have over 700 employees within Morocco. And maybe I could just give you, why we're here. For those that invest in Africa, this is Africa, but it's not as we know it. We invest from Maputo all the way through to Marrakesh. And Morocco is unique. It's different. It's distinct. And when you look at the numbers, you can understand why other parties have invested. If you look at Tangier, Medport, it's now the largest port in the Mediterranean. It's the 4th largest container terminal in the world. You look at what the government's done with regard to fighting COVID, 64% of the population fully vaccinated. You look at aviation. This government identified early on that there's high skills, high technical quality requirements within the aviation sector. Today, there are 2 billion euros of aviation exports from Morocco. You look at rail, high-speed rail, 350 kilometers of high speed connecting us here to Tangier. So as an investor, you look at where other people have invested, and it gives you confidence with regard to that infrastructural investment, that commitment. This country is going to grow. But it's not just in aviation, it's not just in planes, it's not just in trains, also in automobiles. Morocco last year exceeded China with its net exports of automobiles to Europe. So just think about that. China is threatening America. It's threatening Europe with regard to its capacity in manufacturing terms. Just ask Donald Trump what China means with regard to international trade. Today, this country exceeded China with its net exports of cars into Europe. 16 billion euros of exports from Morocco. So from our perspective, we want to identify high growth economies that are sustainable, that have a domestic manufacturing diversified economy. For too long, my Moroccan friends would talk about Algeria's got hydrocarbons, Nigeria's got oil. We don't have those dividends, if you like, within our country, or assets within our country. But what Morocco's done is untapped and exploited its opportunity domestically with regard to its people, but also geographically with regard to its location as an obvious bridgehead between Africa and Europe, and being able to onshore those labour, those skills here in Morocco gives us confidence with regard to the growth of the business market. I can talk leisure later.
Great. And Westmont, it's been, the first mover under many instances in many markets, right? So I think, it's opening the gate to many things, and probably bring our friend Hamza here. What opportunities are you seeing, in the market, and, why are you here, right? Are you actually looking at something in particular, or?
So from my standpoint, I want to articulate a few important things which I think needs to be shared. We spend a lot of time justifying a trend, right? We say, why is this a hotspot? but we forget about the macro, right? We forget about the fundamental of the industry we're in. We forget about the fact that we're in the travel, hospitality, mobility business. And there's one trend which is happening across the world today. People are traveling more, and people are going to continue traveling more. This younger generation wants experiences, they want mobility. Today, travel is becoming a vital budget of every person's spend. People are wanting to do more. The internet has propelled the growth of these economies, the availabilities of these inventories, and what's happening? They're looking for more. But they're also looking for new destinations. So I think the ecosystem on why Morocco is great. The macro fundamentals are naturally there for whatever reason, and I think Iwan is on the money. We've got to go back, and I think the bigger question Morocco needs to answer is, right, the macro is great. I'm part of this global ecosystem. I'm part of an ecosystem where 1 in 10 jobs in the world comes. Government has recognized that. They've created the incentives. So for me, the challenge isn't why Morocco. The biggest challenge I have is execution. The biggest challenge I have is how do you take these macro fundamentals and how do you get execution done right? How do you make sure your offering of what you're offering into the country is compelling, is sustainable? It's sustainable beyond just cycles. It's sustainable beyond just a World Cup event. 2, how do I make sure I have a resilient domestic tourism economy? Because you've got social grants, you've got health services, you've got a growing middle income. How do I get more of that resilience at that level? Because if I do that, I will have the ability then to yield, position, I'll have a compelling case. And the 3rd, how do I make sure my people buy into the cultural ecosystem? And for me, if those 3 things are there and that execution is there, I think Morocco is onto a winning wicket. It's got the big picture, it's got the proximity, it's got the economic fundamentals, but I think unlocking that with the right partners, the right people, the right capital, I think is going to unearth a huge opportunity for what I think is a huge opportunity set in this continent.
I think you just, skyrocketed discussion. We let maybe Mehdi, you want to take this up, Mehdi?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Alain. Well, basically, I think we can all agree that the numbers are great. I think some of the right questions were asked yesterday about why they are great. And it's probably, a long-term vision and a long-term strategy that's starting to bear its fruits. And it's an integrated development strategy, as Ewan pointed out. It's not just tourism. It's a number of things that are sort of unlocking at the same time. It's His Majesty's vision for this country and what he wants to do with this country. I think there was also a very important point from Mr. Hamid bin Tahar, one of our leaders in this industry, when he talked about we just managed to get it right in terms of growth in arrivals versus capacity. And that shows also the intelligence of the government, the intelligence of the operators, the intelligence of investors. I'm not saying that we're not going to do some silly investments. That's part of the game. Part of the game is also to avoid them. So how do you avoid them? For me, it's fundamental that investors stay investors and use brands. When you have someone as experienced as my esteemed colleagues on the floor here, and they're all using brands, it's for a reason. And when you want to grow and double your capacity in 5 years, that's a 15% growth per year, which is achievable. Just look at the numbers from last year in terms of arrivals and so on. Just look at the pipeline, because if the pipeline wasn't supporting that for next year, then game over. But the pipeline is there. So all these things are sort of aligning. We have, some of the biggest investors looking at this market, some of the smartest boys in the industry looking at it, investing, setting up firms here in Morocco, and bringing capital from elsewhere to Morocco. So I think the answer is already there. Now, for others who are not going to replicate that, or what is the fastest way to come, and is probably by selecting people like ourselves. Not a big family office, but a family office nonetheless established in the market, a local partner who can unlock some of the admin things and help with the execution that you talked about, Hamza. It is a big risk, but we're also having professional firms like Magis Pro, luckily, to help us as investors deliver on time, on budget, and with the combination of the brands, also deliver a product that's sustainable after the World Cup. And for me, I don't know if this is, if a lot of people share the view, this World Cup is not the, what's driving all this. The World Cup is just a catalyst and accelerator of what's going to happen anyway. So we are actually taking advantage of putting together the infrastructure, putting together all the fundamentals, and working all together towards this World Cup. But we are also working to have assets that are sustainable after the World Cup to avoid other countries' mistakes.
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, those events, a bit like Dubai Expo and all those things that have happened just help, just push the destination, but then it's all about everything else that is happening. And obviously, I think Smith and the authorities here are very active.
I think the government and Smith are doing a fantastic job at sort of showcasing Morocco, and I want to thank them, from the bottom of my heart in terms of what they're doing. We are very lucky to have such a supportive government and such a supportive institution as Smith. And also, we've been very lucky and very smart about sort of using the last World Cup's achievement in terms of football. Morocco was the most Googled word. People were asking, what the hell, who's this country arriving at the semi-final? And they saw how the supporters, how people were cheering, how they were interacting with the locals, with GCC. We had all the Arab words and beyond just the Arab words behind Morocco. So it gave us a fantastic platform. So people know, where is Morocco? What's interesting about Morocco? That kind of advertising you cannot buy with money.
I think you had a great subject about execution, and I'd like to hear a bit from Youssef on how you've supported investors. You've supported Westmont, but you've got many others in coming into Morocco and being their boots on the ground here.
Yeah, actually. What Mehdi was saying, government has done an amazing job putting in place the infrastructure for the whole tourism development. Smith as well has done a fantastic job attracting investors and organizing events like this one. What we do, we add a little part to this puzzle in execution, as was mentioned in Hamza. Today 70% of our portfolio are FDI, mainly from the Middle East. Although the past 2 years we've seen an increase from Moroccan investors. But historically, the past 10 years, 70% of our investment were coming from abroad. Westmont is one of the big players with whom we assisted in refurbishing this asset, and the Four Seasons in Marrakesh. What we can say is we commit ourselves into accelerating the FDI. So Smith will bring the investors. We make sure the investors are confident into the Moroccan landscape in being assisted by the right project manager, finding the right contractors, building on time, within budget, and achieving their target IRR, and that means they will be repeating again the same investment. So that's a promise I made to myself a couple of years ago when we established the company, is really to put the light on the local capacity of Moroccan entrepreneur, consultants, and contractors into achieving the best brands. So we've already assisted most of the brands that are on the on the screen right here, and we are happy to continue. As I mentioned earlier, we have a solid signed pipeline of upcoming project, and yes, for sure, the World Cup is helping a lot with a very strong momentum. The incentive from Smith have some, I mean, every week now I'm receiving a call for family-owned hotels who decide now to upgrade thanks to the incentives from the government.
Okay, obviously, you know, there's no projects without finance. So my next, I think, for Ken, how are you describing, you know, the current funding environment? How do you see it from South Africa? Are you seeing any flows? And, you know, are you looking, or will you be financing projects in Morocco with the right partners?
Yes, so I think from a South African point of view, I think the growth story in Morocco has definitely not been lost on us as well. And I think as the conference has kind of focused on it and highlighted it, it's something that's definitely caught our attention as well. And I think coming from South Africa, where we've pretty much lived through that World Cup build-up of capacity, and seen in some regions how that capacity has then come on and continued to do well post the World Cup. I think that bodes very well for considering investments in the region. And I think from an IDC point of view, at this point, we've I think even prior to coming to Morocco, we were already on various calls just hearing about lots of opportunities and pipelines of projects and deals that are already ongoing within Morocco. So I think from our perspective, it's to try and find partnerships within the context that we can work with in being part of the growth story. And I think from an IDC point of view, obviously being very focused in the Southern African region, there's an opportunity to diversify and I think be part of kind of getting a piece of the growth story that's coming out of the region. So I think for us, that's probably the angle we're looking at, and I think looking to work with local partners on the ground who I think understand, I think the details around the technical implementation, local investors, I think who've already done a lot of work and projects in the space, just because I think due to our location, we haven't ventured this far north historically. So I think working with local partners is something that we'll really value in trying to be part of this growth story.
Okay, I know in the past, say when we looked at investment here, you know, currency fluctuations, the repatriation of funds were some issues. I think that's really a question for Hamza and anyone here. How do you see this going, and is that still an issue today for you to invest here?
So coming from South Africa, we are very acutely familiar, right? And I think if you look at the whole continent, right, you've got issues around exchange control, currency, and those issues. From the limited understanding that I have, I believe that Morocco has a very simple, streamlined process. So long as the appropriate disclosures are made, they sort of work. So again, I think if you are coming into an emerging market, you also need to man up and sort of deal with some of the emerging market risks. It's one of the big things I'm currently sharing with the institutional community, right? Everyone wants the risk premium. Everyone wants to get their fair share. But you know what? Deal with it, right? You can't ask for an IRR, risk premium, and liquidity, and then you're still sitting and saying, oh, you know what? Is my money going to come out right? Move on with life. And I think the institutional investors need to also mature up, because what ends up happening is they go and put their money in Europe, they go put their money in America, they have no issues. They get 3, 4, 5, 6%, they're happy. They come into Africa, they want the best player, the best jockey, they want all the incentives from government, and I think that message has to change, because I think the opportunity set, the global south, the young population is here. So I know I've answered your question in a long way, but my answer is people have to mature up, right? Capital providers have to act in a mature fashion. Life isn't going to miraculously solve all of their, and there'll be no risk. So I think my understanding is Morocco has a good framework. I think it works. But I think equally, the capital needs to be mature enough and act in a very matured fashion if they want to enjoy that upside in what these destinations offer.
No, I think you're perfectly echoing with, what Raoul was telling us yesterday, right? I think it was exactly on the same line. But even do you agree?
I think in Morocco, effectively our industry is a real estate play. Moroccan investors and banks really understand the retail, commercial, offices, data centres. We've touched on the Figart infrastructure. So I think you're absolutely right. The local investment community here is very sophisticated. They really do understand a real estate investment. I think traditionally hotels have been a diversification play. So you have family offices, you have some organisations within Morocco who have decided when it's to have a hotel as a means to diversify. But hotels are capital intensive, they're complicated. The brands are really good at getting the distribution piece, but clearly the brands are not the best operators on the planet. So I think as an industry, we need to do a better job of making our investments look more attractive. There's a lack of liquidity. I would put that down to not necessarily with regard to friction in the investment process, but more that there's not much buying and selling of hotel real estate. And Didier mentioned earlier, Olivier mentioned earlier, we need to get more liquidity in the market, and that means the investment community has to get more comfortable that you can buy retail, but you could also buy hospitality. And as mentioned in Wayne's presentation this morning, there are certain components that make our real estate class more attractive than others. And one of the key elements up there for me was inflation rate. If you rent an office and you've got a fixed base rent, it doesn't give you a hedge against inflation. Reality is that as an industry, and Marrakesh is a very good example, Marrakesh market identified early on, post-COVID, there was an increased demand. The industry responded, and they were able to actually increase the rates higher than the cost base. So they hedged themselves ahead of inflation and then maximised on profit. So clearly the industry here is sophisticated. We've got some really good operators. I would like to see more investment from other real estate players in the hospitality segment, domestically and internationally. And I don't think that's just big boxes. I think the minister mentioned yesterday 16 different activities, if you like, or products that she referred to within Morocco. I think we as an industry need to say, well, if there's 61 flights a day arriving from Europe and Marrakesh, how do we pump that demand around the country? And we need to make sure that it's more than just going to the sunshine or the beach or the Medina. There's a lot more to Morocco. And we as an industry need to take our part in explaining that, communicating that, and attracting that business to Morocco. And that's not price. Tunisia sits very close to us. They went for reduce the cost and try and compete with the south of the Mediterranean. You can see what's happened to their hospitality sector. Here, we need to be a lot more confident, and we need to be more astute with regard to how we position ourselves in each of those different product classifications.
Great, thank you. And there's definitely been a lot, that's happened over the last 10 years. But Youssef, as we were preparing for the panel, you were telling me a lot about infrastructure and how much, the government is investing into, just making all the connections and making things easy. But not just for the World Cup, for the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah, indeed. That's what we witnessed the past couple of years. As Mehdi mentioned, the momentum around the World Cup in Qatar was amazing. It's like Morocco was organizing that World Cup. We were lucky, and we should absolutely keep the vibe after that event. Right now, there is this scheme, Cap Hospitality, that's extremely attractive, and today we are including this in our package. So while we meet investor, we of course offer the construction management services, which is our core business, but we also assist them in explaining the whole aspect of the procedure going through the cap hospitality, because it's a very strong incentive, and I believe our friend from Smith it's ending soon. So investors should take advantage of this very quickly. If I may as well, Alain, I believe Kud and Hamza, they flew all over from South Africa to Casablanca, and since they are attending this panel, and Smith is here, the bankers is here, the brands are here, so I think you should jump and set up. Definitely.
I already started jumping. I had the pleasure of meeting my colleagues from Fundukia, so I'm already doing jumping. Ken, I don't know if Ken is going to do a lot of jumping. Ken, before he looks at Morocco, I know he has a lot of issues to fix in South Africa before, so I don't know if that's going to work. But for us, I think we're looking at the geography, right? Because I think the fundamentals are there. We as a family office believe capability is going to propel execution. One of the biggest things, I've seen is, and Iwan is on the money again, right? Around creating the story. We speak experiential, but again, they need capability, right? Around gastronomy, telling that story. All of those pieces need to be well curated, right? Because again, the brands are going to come, everyone is going to do their bit, but someone has to run that business. Someone has to drive that rate lift. Someone has to manage business mix. Someone has to make sure people, labor are, these are what the organics of our business is. That's what we sell. That's what we do. And if we don't orchestrate that in the right fashion, you can have all the big picture thesis. But if this doesn't work well, investors aren't going to be happy, and you're going to have an unhappy ecosystem. So I think solving for that is going to be vital. And I think we believe with what we have done in South Africa, the track record where we have deployed private capital, I think is a story we can build on with the right opportunity and the right partner. So we've started the journey. SMIT has been great in sharing opportunities with us. We've met some partners. I've had the opportunity to meet with the minister twice, and I think we are going to look for it. I also think with what we as Millat are doing now in institutionalizing our cap table, the play of South Africa, the play of the top, the north, I think all become a compelling value proposition from a de-risking standpoint for investors. So that's why I'm here, and I think our train is moving ahead, inshallah.
Look, it looks like you're really excited about the market. Looks like you're coming, and you're also known to have taken bold moves, right? You brought Hyatt to South Africa in the middle of COVID, opening your hotels there, in the middle of the pandemic. Will you be doing it, with a brand partner? That's one part of my question. The other one, will you be looking at having a local partner? I know how much you like to be in your hotels. And being, you're a great asset manager. So will you look at local partnership? Who's going to help you locally?
So I think the local partner is an absolute must. But obviously, chemistry and alignment is very important. Cultural alignment is very important. The local partner also needs to understand the ease that they've had of attracting pockets of Middle East GCC capital was easy, right? Individual guy, do a deal, get some capital, is gone. So the local partner also needs to mature up, understand what is the horizon on the assets, understand what a partner like us would want to expect from them, would need to share in the cultural values around the importance of upskilling people. They need to invest in the right spaces. If I've got a hotel, how do I elevate my F&B offering? How do I really take what Morocco has and build a real gastronomical experience? How do I build real experiences? Because everyone speaks experiential, right? But very few can deliver experiential, right? And that's where Morocco is going to have to build. But I think local partner for me is a must, and not because we can't figure it out, right? The world, but it it propels and creates huge speed. So I think local partner, absolute must. Then I think the brands, my view on brands is horses for courses. I work with everyone. Whilst I'm the largest owner of Hyatt hotels in South Africa, I speak to all the brands. I work with everyone because I believe it's horses for courses. And I think Morocco is going to be no different to that. But I think that, together with what the market set creates here, is something very compelling. It's going to be down to the execution.
And Ewan, obviously you came in early. What do you think about, I mean, you came in, does Westmont have any partnership here, or you're just your own capital? And what's your view on, and your best advice for, an investor that wants to come in the market?
Yeah, so we generally put together our capital of institutional investors. So we have 2 different institutional investors we're involved in within Morocco. We also have other assets and investments that are just purely exclusive of our capital. I would say, a call out to Nedbank. Nedbank is a South African bank. You know them very well, Ken. We've developed a strong relationship with Nedbank in a number of markets. And when we entered this market, we didn't feel as though we had a true alignment with the local banks with regard to what we were doing, because it was a bit different. We weren't greenfield. They really understood project financing, but when you're looking at a real estate stretch, where when we buy an asset, we basically do 3 things. One is improve the P&L, take away all the unnecessary, get the conversion improved. Secondly, work with the likes of Magus Pro to de-risk and to use the capex to reposition the asset. 3, bring the brand back in, move it from a Sheraton to Marriott, so the market externally knows something has changed. So to do all that, talking to local banks, they were interested, they were intrigued, but they hadn't seen us do it. And we went to Nedbank, and Nedbank got it because they knew what we'd done in other markets. So all credit to them. They've come to Morocco. I think we're the first customer. They can correct me if I'm wrong, with Nedbank. And I know now they have an appetite to be involved in multi-sectors within Morocco. So, I see that as part of my relationship with Smith, is that it's not just about what the government can do for us, it's also what we can do for Morocco and how we can broaden the sophistication of the market here. So I welcome GV structures where appropriate, but at the end of the day, I think our key piece is make sure that the pitch is understood, the rules of the game are understood by all, and we welcome more players on the pitch.
Great. And Yusuf, yeah.
Yeah, if I may say a word regarding local partner, Hamza. I like my country to grow and to put in place the right fundamentals, transparency, ease of doing business. In sort of foreign investor can come here without necessarily needing a local partner. So finding a partner where synergies are, where completing each other, yes. But I'd like, with all the initiatives that the government are putting in place are the result, the objective is to put in place a complete, transparent and easy framework for investors to come in with any partner they might have a synergy with, and then complete and deliver their project. And then you have all the ecosystem of the right people, the right consultants, contractors, management firms, while operating the hotel that can assist you. But again, please find the right partner, not necessarily just because he's a local one.
Yeah, Mehdi.
I just wanted to intervene on this because it's a question close to my heart. We discussed a few interesting topics here. Hamza asking questions about sort of the added value of the local partner, and making the statement about the time of going to the GCC, finding an investor, a sleeping investor, is over. I think you're going to still see that a little bit. I think that trend. GCC is very close to Morocco. We're going to still see that. But we are also going to see family offices like ours getting professionalized. We did the transition from a local management, even with a tour operator, to professional brands, to transitioning into the premium all-inclusive segment. And we learned a lot from these brands. It's a transfer of knowledge. Now we would like to move on to the other side of the transfer of knowledge by having also partners that are professional, like my esteemed colleagues here. We would like to learn from them how they worked on these assets, how they were able to do multiple deals, because it took us 38 years, my family, to get to the stage with 2 hotels. Yes, we could have done more, but we were very careful. There was history and so on, and we were very cautious. But now we're seeing the opportunity, and we don't want to miss it. I mean, as a cautious family office investor, we are now convinced that it's the right time. But we also want to sort of find a partner of this, magnitude that would, also transition with us. We would see the added value to them in terms of execution locally, all the legal framework, or the admin. I mean, yes, the government is doing a lot, but it's not an easy business to be investing in a hotel, with all the process, all the pieces that are coming together, and the local partner can add value to that, I can assure you. We've added value to the sleeping partners from the GCC, and we now want to add value to
South Africa.
South Africa, exactly.
We'll get back to you, but we'll jump to Ken. But how do you fund that growth? And I think Ken wanted to...
Maybe just a few thoughts on I think, IDC and IDC involvement in the region. I think historically, IDC's had a very South African-focused mandate. So in terms of investments across the continent, there was always a requirement for direct benefit back into South Africa. And I think that limited our scope for transactions, because I think there had to be direct spend in the country. But I think the new continental strategy talks more around what role can South Africa and IDC play in development across the continent, and on a risk-mitigated basis, working with partners in the different geographies. So I think it gives us a bit more scope to then be able to consider more transactions, because I think with the pressure to deploy capital annually, you find that South Africa becomes smaller and smaller with the number of opportunities you can pursue. So I think this definitely gives you an opportunity to look at other markets where you can potentially deploy some of that capital.
Does that mean that you'll be backing Hamza's investments in Morocco? Probably, right?
Yeah. I think very open to,
It's your financing, Hamza.
Hamza, you're the lucky man. You found
exactly, the lucky man
partners on one panel.
Lucky, all the finances they're speaking of, we sort of know of and speak of. Nedbank is a very large funder in our South African cap table and business. So we're very familiar. IDC, we haven't worked with them, but we know of them. We know the thesis. We know the partner, and I think they know of us. So I'm sure those existing track records make it very easy. But that's what my story was 4 years ago. Just to what Mehdi was saying, I was a trophy owner. I had one asset, one Hilton, built it, didn't know what I was doing. Really, my thesis grew 15 years later in the middle of COVID, right? Because that's when I said, I'm going to be in this business, I'm going to build scale. And I think, that's where the Propel journey is. So a lot of similarities with what sort of Mehdi is saying, and I see that's where the opportunity set lies to collaborate and build it onto a platform. But again, it's going to be about execution. The talk is easy. It's going to be about the execution.
Just one point, I think you raised two very important points for an FDI. Foreign exchange. And I think, the currency has been pretty stable and pegged to essentially 80% euros and 20. No one knows exactly, but when you track it and do your statistic regressions, it's pretty much linked to that basket. Yes, you have the inflation risk, but we've seen from the slides of GLL that we're having one of the highest ADR growths. We have to be careful about that as well. You know, it's a positive because that's when you're starting to see profitability. And I think someone raised that question. I'm very happy to say that properties can be very profitable in Morocco. Otherwise, these gentlemen wouldn't be around here. I know Ewan also creates his return by solving some other issues in distressed land and so on. But you know, that also gives high returns. But just managing a property and looking after the fundamentals can create those high returns. And last point on the investment, it's pretty clear, I think, to everyone that every dollar you invest, you're entitled to return your money back. You're entitled to return your dividends, and you're entitled to return the profit on the business once you sell it. So the framework is pretty friendly on that front as well.
Sorry, I want to go a bit over time on another question for you, Mehdi. You have an interesting
Time's up.
I think it's an interesting question. 2 minutes? Really? No? Time up? Now, I wanted to have a 1 minute response about, you know, is there opportunities for funding through capital markets, and how do you see, you know, funding beyond the traditional debt?
It's a very interesting question. I think we're all looking forward to seeing Le Fonds Mohamed VI and all the funds selected up and running. If we want to grow 15% and double capacity in 5 years, that's a must. And so that fund and those vehicles needs to be set up and quickly. So if my message gets, you know, or our message gets to whoever, you know, is listening to that, I think it's key, right? It's J-5. And also the capital markets, if we can find ways through OPCE or other reforms, you know, of raising capital, that would be very useful. Right. Government has done what they need to do and more. We have one of the most generous systems, you know, on the planet, bar none. But we need the equity side of the story to also help.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alain. Thank you, gentlemen, for